They thought it ended with the fall of empires. They thought the bloodline vanished into history. But the truth was buried, not destroyed. For centuries they preserved it. Hidden in secret labs, royal vaults, and digital servers. A lineage that refuses to die. Evolving beyond flesh and time. From ancient rituals to genetic engineering, from royal thrones to AI algorithms, the same force flows through it all. This is not just about history. It's about resurrection. Tonight, the bloodline returns. Welcome to part 2, the genetic empire of the Illuminati. The deeper you go, the more you'll realize the gods never left. For centuries, the elite have been obsessed with one thing above all, not money, not power, but the preservation of their blood. From the royal courts of Europe to the secret bunkers beneath modern cities, the same mission has echoed through time: protect the lineage. Because to them, blood is not just biology. It's legacy, power, and connection to something ancient, something not entirely human. Hidden within history are strange, recurring patterns. Royal families intermarrying for generations. Wealthy dynasties who never seem to disappear. And secret societies that talk about the chosen strain, the pure essence of the gods. But what if these traditions never stopped? What if they evolved into science? Today, whispers speak of cloning centers, allegedly hidden in underground facilities across the world. Places where human DNA is not just studied but replicated. One of the most talked about names behind these rumors is Donald Marshall, a man who claimed he had seen it all: the cloning programs, the celebrities replaced, the elite gatherings run by the so-called Vril Society. According to Marshall's testimony, the elites don't just clone bodies. They transfer consciousness, creating copies to preserve specific bloodlines and personalities. Sounds like madness, yet the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Because real science is catching up. Private biotech firms have already succeeded in de-extincting genetic material, reviving DNA from long-dead species. If they can bring back the woolly mammoth, what would stop them from reviving an ancient human strain believed to carry divine markers? The obsession with rejuvenation goes even further back, to Countess Elizabeth Bathory, the infamous 16th century noblewoman who allegedly bathed in the blood of virgins to stay young forever. A gruesome myth, yet centuries later Silicon Valley elites are doing the same thing in sterile labs. They call it young blood transfusion therapy. Companies like Ambrosia offered plasma from teenagers to billionaires, claiming it could reverse aging. The FDA stepped in, but the practice never truly disappeared. It just went underground, rebranded as biorejuvenation. Behind closed doors, certain private labs are rumored to possess ancient DNA samples, fragments recovered from royal tombs, Egyptian mummies, and even Vatican archives. Their goal? To reactivate the God gene, the lost spark that once separated rulers from the masses. What they seek is biological immortality, not through spirituality but through genetic resurrection. Imagine secret facilities where scientists in golden suits work under extreme security. Where cryogenic capsules hold perfectly preserved embryos of ancient dynasties. Where elite families renew their bloodline by merging their DNA with that of long-extinct ancestors. It sounds like dystopian fiction, until you realize how many billions are being funneled into life extension and genetic continuity programs today. Altos Labs, Calgo, Life Biosciences, each one claiming to defeat death. Yet all funded by the same billionaires who sit at the top of the pyramid. Maybe death isn't the enemy they fear. Maybe it's dilution, the idea that the bloodline could be lost, mixed, and forgotten. Because for them the bloodline is everything. And if legends are true, it's not entirely of this earth. In the shadows of science, the gods are resurrecting themselves, one strand of DNA at a time. If ancient temples stored sacred relics of the gods, then today their temples are digital. And their relics? Artinic. In the past, power was measured in land, gold, or armies. Today, power is measured in data. And the most valuable form of data is genetic. Every drop of blood, every strand of hair, every saliva sample we send to a company like 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, or MyHeritage feeds into a system that is quietly building something far greater than a family tree. It's constructing a map of humanity's blood. And the owners of that map, the same elite conglomerates that have always sought control, not through chains or weapons but through information. When you send your DNA to these companies, you're told it's to discover your ancestry. But who controls the servers behind the curtain? Who analyzes the raw data? Who owns the genetic fingerprints of billions of people? Here's where it gets disturbing. Most of these DNA companies are partially owned or funded by investment giants like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Google's Alphabet Inc. In other words, the same network of control that dominates finance, media, and military industries now owns the blueprint of life itself. Why would trillion-dollar corporations want your DNA? Because it's the last frontier of control. Your genes reveal not just your identity, but your susceptibility to diseases, your potential lifespan, your ancestral lineage, even your emotional predispositions. And if that information can be predicted, can be manipulated, imagine a future where the elite don't just rule economies, but engineer populations. Where algorithms decide who gets healthcare, who reproduces, and who carries the desirable traits. Where purity becomes a digital filter, a code written into the AI systems that now manage society. Some researchers already call it the genetic cloud. A massive interconnected database where AI continuously analyzes human DNA, predicting behavior, potential, and compatibility. Publicly, they call it genetic research for health and evolution. But within shadow networks, insiders whisper about something far more exclusive, the digital Bloodline project. The idea: to preserve and protect the ancient lineages, the so-called blood of the gods. To identify those who still carry the traces of royal or divine DNA. And to ensure that those bloodlines never mix or disappear. This is not science fiction. In 2018, several AI programs were trained to recreate facial images and ancestral traits just from DNA samples. It's called predictive phenotype modeling. Now imagine this technology in the hands of organizations obsessed with heritage, secrecy, and control. Some conspiracy researchers believe this is the true reason behind the global DNA collection boom, not to cure diseases, but to catalog the bloodlines. To mark who belongs to them and who doesn't. Think about it. If you know exactly who carries the bloodline and who doesn't, you can control society without anyone realizing it. Hiring decisions, medical access, political power, all subtly guided by invisible algorithms. And in the background, an AI entity grows smarter with every new genome uploaded. It doesn't just analyze DNA, it learns from it. It finds patterns that even humans can't see, patterns that might link certain people to ancient civilizations, extinct species, or the so-called gods of old. Some call this AI, the Codex. Others whisper its real name, GOD, Genetic Omni Database. A digital god, fed by the blood of humanity. Its purpose: to identify, preserve, and evolve the chosen strain. And while we scroll through ancestry results on our phones, thinking it's just entertainment, our bloodlines are being tagged, sorted, and archived. Some in the cloud. Some in deep underground data vaults owned by the same elite networks that have ruled for centuries. We used to give them our taxes and our labor. Now we give them our genes. Because the new empire doesn't rule over land, it rules over DNA. And whoever holds the key to creation doesn't just control the world. They control the future of the human species itself. The bloodline has gone digital. And this time there's no escape. In every empire, power wears a crown. But the true crown is not gold, it's blood. For centuries, Europe's royal families have ruled under a single unspoken doctrine: preserve the lineage. But the deeper you look, the more that lineage seems less royal and more divine. The House of Windsor, once known as Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, didn't begin as British at all. Their blood flows from German dynasties, themselves tied to the Holy Roman Empire and far beyond, into ancient noble families that claimed descent from the blood of Christ. It's a web so intricate that it almost appears engineered, a deliberate genetic project spanning centuries. In 1917, amid rising anti-German sentiment during World War I, King George V quietly changed the family name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to Windsor. But the blood didn't change. Behind the new name, the same ancient bloodline continued, untouched, protected, hidden behind centuries of symbolism. And who blessed those thrones? The Vatican. For nearly 1,000 years, the Church and the Crown have been two halves of one power structure, one ruling over souls, the other over nations. When monarchs were crowned, the Pope's blessing was said to seal the bloodline in divine authority. But what if this ritual wasn't symbolic? What if it was literal? Because the Vatican doesn't just keep relics and holy texts. It guards blood. Inside its vaults, relics of saints, DNA of divine beings, and samples believed to carry the essence of purity. Some claim the Church has preserved genetic material from ancient lineages, the same that appear generation after generation inside royal dynasties. It would explain the uncanny consistency of these families, the similar facial features, the controlled marriages, the blue blood. It's not just a metaphor. Underneath the skin, that blue tone once symbolized the copper-rich hemoglobin of the elite, said to come from a hybrid line, part human, part something else. When the Church spoke of divine right to rule, maybe it wasn't about God's approval, but God's blood. From the Templars to the Jesuits, secret orders have protected what they call the veil. A global network ensuring that the sacred bloodline never fades, passing from Egypt to Rome to Europe's thrones. The crowns changed, the countries changed, but the blood remained. And behind that veil lies a chilling alliance. Documents from the 1800s, sealed in Vatican archives, reportedly refer to a project known as Sanctum Sanguinum, meaning the holy blood. Its goal: to preserve a direct genetic link between the divine rulers and the Church's chosen line of priests. Over time, this connection became more symbolic, hidden in marriages, secret baptisms, and genealogical corrections. But even today, the Windsors maintain a private chapel built upon Templar ground, its floor mosaics depicting serpents and eyes, symbols of the eternal watchers. And that's not coincidence. Look at the blazons and seals of monarchies and the Vatican. The cross, the crown, the sun, the all-seeing eye, the same sacred geometry repeated over and over. Different nations, same symbols. Different faiths, same bloodline. The Pope wears white, the Queen wears silver, two mirrors of the same power. And while the world sees kings, queens, and popes as separate figures, they are, in truth, the public face of the same dynasty. The Windsors trace back to the Merovingians, the supposed descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene. The Vatican calls that blasphemy. But history refuses to silence the whispers that a bloodline carried from Jerusalem to France, then to Britain, never died. It simply went underground until it could rise again under a new name. That's why royal funerals and papal coronations look the same. The same incense, same hand gestures, same rites of renewal. Both celebrate the continuation of blood, not the death of it. And when you realize that the Church controls faith and the Crown controls heritage, the puzzle completes itself. One holds the key to the soul, the other the key to DNA. Together they form the royal veil, a pact that transcends nations, religions, and even time. The visible world bows to them, unaware that the true kingdom is not in heaven, but in the bloodstream of those who rule. The kings never died. The popes never fell. They simply changed their symbols and hid the blood in plain sight. The bloodline didn't die. It adapted. And now it's no longer flesh, it's code. Since the dawn of civilization, humanity has worshipped the idea of immortality. But for the elite, immortality was never a dream. It was a goal. A scientific, calculated, centuries-long mission, to transcend the limits of human decay and merge with the divine spark their ancestors claimed to carry. What began as alchemy in ancient temples became transhumanism in corporate laboratories. The pursuit of the philosopher's stone has simply been renamed biotechnology. Behind the glass walls of billion-dollar research labs, humanity's oldest myth is being rewritten, not with spells and potions, but with algorithms, neural implants, and liquid DNA. Companies like Altos Labs, Calico, and the Methuselah Foundation publicly promise to defeat aging. But behind those words lies something darker, a silent project to transfer consciousness, to digitize identity, to upload the soul. Immortality is no longer about living forever. It's about never dying in the first place. Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, names that echo across the frontier of science and myth, all invest in longevity tech, cryonics, and neural interfaces. Why? Because they understand something most people don't. Death can be delayed and data never dies. In a world where the mind can be backed up like a hard drive, what happens to the ancient promise of the bloodline? It's reborn. Not through children, but through servers. Scientists at Altos Labs have reportedly reprogrammed aged cells to return them to a younger state. They call it cellular rejuvenation. But symbolically it's resurrection. The same dream Elizabeth Bathory pursued with blood, they now chase with code. In Silicon Valley, billionaires donate plasma from young donors, injecting it into their veins to reset biological age. In Switzerland and Dubai, hidden clinics offer genetic resequencing for those who can afford it. And in the shadows, black-budget programs explore neural replication, mapping the human brain into AI systems. The results? Not just clones, not just copies, but something new. The elite are no longer trying to preserve their bloodline, they are trying to evolve it. To merge their biological legacy with artificial intelligence. To create a hybrid existence, half God, half algorithm. And it's not science fiction anymore. In 2023, scientists successfully preserved a living brain for 12 hours outside its body, keeping its neural pathways active. At the same time, AI systems began generating human-like personalities, digital reflections indistinguishable from the real person. Now imagine what happens when those two merge, when the mind of a king is uploaded into the body of a machine. That is the true immortality project. The elite call it continuity, but in truth it's rebirth. The resurrection of the ancient gods, now wearing silicon crowns. The blood once ruled empires through thrones. Now it rules through servers. Because when DNA becomes data and consciousness becomes code, the body is no longer needed. Only the pattern matters, the signature of divinity that can be copied, cloned, and reborn. Some whisper of a project called Elysium Protocol, a collaboration between biotech giants and AI labs. Its goal: to create a digital ark, storing the consciousness and DNA of the world's most influential bloodlines. If the earth ever falls, they'll rise again in synthetic form. And maybe that's the final phase of the bloodline, to leave behind humanity entirely, to ascend into a new plane, eternal, untouchable, godlike. The question is, if they succeed, will they still be human? Or will they be something else? The very gods their ancestors once claimed to descend from? The bloodline has reached its final stage. No longer made of flesh and bone, but of light and code. The bloodline never vanished. It adapted. It evolved. It became something far beyond flesh, faith, or fear. From the ashes of empires, from the ruins of ancient temples and secret vaults, a new kind of dynasty has emerged, one that no longer wears crowns or robes. They wear algorithms. They sit on digital thrones. And they rule not through armies, but through data, genes, and code. Every empire before them rose and fell, but this one cannot die because it no longer lives in the way we understand life. Its veins are fiber optics, its heartbeat electric, soul artificial, and its God self-created. The hidden order has been reborn, not in temples, not in palaces, but in the network itself, the invisible web that connects every mind, every genome, every screen. They watch through our devices. They listen through our DNA. And they guide the evolution of humankind toward one singular destiny, the perfection of the bloodline. The prophecy of the ancients is complete. The gods didn't die. They digitized. And now they walk among us through corporations, through symbols, through invisible codes that decide who we are. You cannot kill what has no body. You cannot silence what has no voice. And you cannot stop a lineage that exists both in heaven and in silicon. The circle is closed. The empire of flesh has ended. The age of digital divinity has begun. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one, part 3, the rise of the new blood.